Hello, everyone. It's the 25th of August. This is the Love Foundry, and I'm James Daniel. And we are talking of humanists today, bringing reality into the illusion. And I put it in that way because most of the human race is in a vast, highly developed, tight technological illusion about the life that is the universe. And it's a very difficult and confusing issue for us to get our mind around and to bring that reality that's not in the illusion into it, to replace it and stabilize it and make it a dynamically living quality. And the reality that's missing and the illusion that we're living, looking out at the world and all of the front page news, differs in one major way: the aspect of love. The aspect of love is a quality, a developed beingness of life itself. And it pours out of life into the universe everywhere, not just in it, but the creative power of it. So every single thing that has been created since the beginning of this universe, at the Big Bang or whatever the big thing was, up until now, has had life built into every atom, every action, every element, every development. Now, what we're experiencing as a human race, as a human kingdom on this small planet, which is all that we know about at this point, is the same life, the very same life, because it's created all of us and all of this and everything as well, except our consciousness, what we see and think and feel about life, our life, the pain of it, the joy of it, the confusion of it, the ideas of it, the actions that we take, is missing love. It's been left out of our awareness. So we're not seeing it. We're simply not recognizing love as a living part of our dynamic, empowered coexistence upon this planet, in this universe, with all the other lives, great and small, that share this universe with it. Now, the other lives that are not so impaired as we are sharing the nature of love in their daily, moment-to-moment relationship to the eternal now, where love is pouring itself out into the universe. Because we're missing love, we're missing an enormous amount of other elements at the same time. Primarily harmony, joy, a constant, invigorating, and violently living sense of coexistence. Because being plugged into the powerhouse of life itself as it floods the universe with its essence makes us incredibly dynamic and living. Remove that sense of connectedness and the dynamic living goes proportionately down to the level of what we're living among that also are not dynamically conscious of their relationship to love, which is rocks, flowers, animals. As a next logical kingdom upward from the animal kingdom, when you remove love from our consciousness, we don't fall into exactly the same condition as animals do. We fall into one that's far worse than the animal condition. Because we, having imagination and having willingness, free will, we are creating without love our own illusionary world, and we're living in it, fighting over scraps, fighting over illusionary toys, thinking these are real and these are important and these are primary activities of life because we're alive. But we have left out of that livingness what we would be thinking and doing and having and being if love were a conscious, active, dynamic part of our consciousness. Not just of our body, of our self, of our relationship to other things. See, it's in us. It's already there. You don't have to drink a cup of love to have it in you. It's already there. But you're ignoring it. We are ignoring it. We are pretending it doesn't exist. The most dynamic quality in the universe, connecting us to all the livingness of the universe as ourself, as an aspect of ourself, because like grapes on a vine, the essence that circulates through one grape is the same essence that's circulating through all the grapes. And we are part of that life. We have our own individuality and we have our own sense of growth and maturity and experience within that identity, that group identity, but we are of it, nevertheless. An itch there going on. So let's take a look at this for a moment and see if that's the case, and it is the case. Trust me, it is very much the case. Why? How do we know that? Well, because love has no opposite. Hatred, anger, frustration, misery, negativity, all the things that we name as things that are seemingly opposite to love are not opposite love. They are simply life unconscious of love. Life with love taken out. The color that makes the palette come to life and throb and live and interact in dynamic, positive, co-creative ways disappears. It fades into the background. And money, guns, and lawyers replace love as the creative power, but they are not creative powers. You can buy things, but you cannot create them with money. You can build them, but you can't create them. Love is necessary for all genuine creation. Now, we're not going to split hairs and enter into arguments of, well, what about this? And what about a Salvador Dali painting? And what about this and that and the other thing? And because it's too complex an illusion that we are living in to deal with every single seeming exception to the proposition of its genuine illusionary power. Just accept for the moment that it's possible that what I'm saying is true. And that the cure to the human condition of every kind whatsoever, every level, every kind, itself, its interaction with other selves, with animals, plants, kingdoms, the planetary life, greater lives, greater beings, love itself. The cure for all of the difficulties of any of that are simply adding love to our conscious experience, because that's where it's missing. Now, by doing that, you are causing resistance, friction, and chaos to the illusion that has infiltrated and interpenetrated every aspect of life for well over 1 million years. So we are very versed in the illusion. We built it up gradually and carefully and completely immersed in it. And so now we buy into its reality, except that we know it's not. There's something outside of it. There's something deeper within it. There's a way in which this could bust loose and change in a moment. That's what we're up against right now as a human race. And it's far simpler than we think. We don't have to invent our way out of it with quantum mechanics or some new gravitational urge. We simply surrender to the reality of love as it lives inside of us, which it has been doing so for quite a while. It joined us a while ago and said, you've lost yourself so deeply in the material illusions of your own consciousness that I will come and join you there. I will take up your struggle and live within you, within reach, within arm's reach. Love is there in a way that makes it knowable, approachable, contactable, interact with us, and dynamically transform, transmute, unify us, and bring grace into our deepest nature. So that's a pretty good situation to find yourselves in 2025, when we begin to awaken to the reality that we need this. We need it. So if it's true, and if you want it, and if it's right there inside of you, then how would you prove it to yourself? How would you access it? Not by reading all of the books of the Buddha. They will give you tremendous information, but it won't do the work for you. You still have to apply the wisdom of the Buddha to your daily life if you want it to manifest a living, loving, intelligent, willful demonstration of activity with life. You have to make the steps. You have to use your free will to choose it. You have to choose commitment to a universe where love lives inside of you and bring it out into the surface, conflict it with the illusion, choose between the two, and start living the reality with love over the illusion without it. Now, that's been true for from the beginning of time. That's always been the solution. Starting a couple of thousand years ago, at the beginning of the Christian era, it became possible in a new and dynamic way. Now, the struggle of that energy, which is the illusion without love, against the appearance of that loving reality in us, that struggle, one against the other, has been going on. Now, it inevitably must be lost by the illusionary elements of it because they're not real. That's all there is to it. And in the end, look, reality is going to triumph illusion. There's just no way around that because it has all of the cards in its hand. And you, as an aspect of reality, are dealt the same hand as God. You have the same cards in your hand that the divine powers hold. You have love in you, you have will in you, you have intelligence in you, you have free will, you have a group coordinated effort that you can join up with other human beings, and you can manifest this. So get busy and do it. Now, the Love Foundry is, of course, designed to do that. That's our purpose. Our purpose is to show you what you can do and then let you do it. And as you prove this to yourself by action, by the response of life around you, by the growth in your understanding that this is real and true, you will develop, and you'll develop stronger and stronger sense of what's real, and you will push back against the illusion until finally you have it into a manageable compartment of the consciousness where you can see an eventual freedom from it. As the growth of reality with other human beings increases to the point where the human race casts out the demons of illusion. So That's a good future, and it's our future. Now, the road between here and the completion of that can be broad and beautiful, full of joy and goodwill. It can be an uphill climb. It can drop into deep valleys of hopelessness and then crawl its way out. It's whatever we choose to make it, calling upon that reality in us to manifest itself against the illusion. Because all of that despair, all of that negativity, all of that hopelessness, hate-filled destruction and chaos that we think is so necessary in the universe is illusion. The banging about of atoms in the material world is not an action of evil. It's an action of matter, dense matter, the matter that lives in the outer ring out here, as I like to say, in this 7-ringed universe. Out here in the outer edge of it, that's matter. That stuff doesn't have conscious suffering. It's not thinking about it. It's just banging around, growing up in maturity through experience to the point where it can be incorporated into a being like a human being, making a whole physical form, and then be given a beginning lesson in what it's like to live in someone, as someone who has love in their nature. Now, we, independent of that material substance out here on the edge of reality, can let it go or build more in, but we don't have to identify with it and take ourselves through the death cycle of the human experience, which we've done since the very beginning. We can liberate ourselves from that. We can actually conquer death in a personal way, in ourselves. Animals don't do that, cannot do that, will not do that. Humans can do that because we are not the animals in which we live. We love those animals. We're identified in them. We're so closely identified with our animal nature that when you stub your toe, you think you hurt yourself, but you didn't. You hurt the animal toe, and you're feeling its pain because you're so integrated with its nervous system. You're living in that animal body completely, the human animal body. But its animal spirit and its animal nature will eventually be released by us as we reach old age and step off into our own conditioning cycle out here, free of, well, it's not way out there. That's clear outside the cosmic physical universe. But at a higher level inside here, maybe up to this level, maybe up to that level, maybe the higher part of this mental level. So up here in the mental Buddhic atmosphere, the human soul retreats to prepare itself for another journey out to the outer rim, where physical, emotional, and mental join together and create a human personality, which is not yet fully free of the illusion that there can be anything in life, anything whatsoever, that is not fully controlled by, animated by, and invested in love. That's part of the illusion. Now, it has meaning out here where atoms of matter are, and here where emotional atoms are, and some of the denser mental atoms, which make up the concrete mind. There, the atoms are filled with a life. All atoms have life. And the atoms that make up our physical, which is dense, water, gas, and the emotional, which are our feeling nature, our astral nature, all of that nature, that comes from this ring in here, and our mental body up to halfway through here, because these are vast fields of developing consciousness. Brahma up here in the mental world. So that Those atoms are what you call, in the esoteric worlds, inter-elemental lives. They're not angelic lives because they do not have consciousness of reality, including love. Recognizing the reality of love doesn't mean you are a god in it or exceptionally proficient at manifesting with love life's secrets. It just means you realize the reality in which you find yourself, and love is part of that reality. But down here in this outer world of human personality life, the consciousness of love has not yet burst forth from the elemental beings. They have not been transmuted and transformed. And because our human life is being lived in their world, unconscious of the world from which we come, up here and way up in here where spirit is, none of these worlds and all of their planes and subplanes and their indigenous lives are appearing in our consciousness, telling us, oh, look at here, look at me, look what's up. No, we're not seeing any of that. That's behind the veil. Because it's behind the veil, we cannot acknowledge its existence as something we can use. So we go out and dig potatoes to come back and cook them for dinner. If there's anything up here you can eat, you can't find it because you can't see it. You can't know what to do with it. Now, that's a condition in us, not in any of these lives up here, not any of the universe itself. The universe itself is a very living, conscious, wonderful, inviting, helpful, healing, loving embrace. But not here, not out here in these outer rims. And a sensitive, developed spiritual being like a human being that lives out here in these worlds, but does not have the opening into itself living in these inner worlds, is powerless to bring the powers and intelligences and relationships out here into the outer world to make life more loving. So we've just been surviving without it. Without it. Will, intelligence, and a lot of gumption, and we've fought our way to 2025. Here we are, looking forward to a new technological age with AI and other things that we have crafted out of these outer substances, put together in a way that can assist our living, but it's a living without love. You can't build love into artificial intelligence. You can do the third law of robotics or whatever it is that Isaac Asimov wrote in his book about how robots can be equipped to say, you do no harm to a human being, or whatever those robotic laws were that he cooked up for a science fiction story, in the hope that they cannot be subverted by someone. Well, of course they can be, because it's an intellectual argument. And no robot who says, I cannot harm a human being, knows what might or might not harm a human being, because they aren't human beings. They're mechanical beings that just process ones and zeros. So we have to decide ourselves if we want to cross this mental barrier or our emotional limitation or our physical boundaries into these inner worlds where love is abundant, where angelic being lives and interacts and thrives and communicates with all the different levels, all under a governing law of love and the other governing laws of the inner universe and the outer universe working together. It's one coherent whole. It's a wonderful cooperative thing. And we're not going to live better by fixing this outer world. We're going to live better by connecting ourselves from this outer world to the inner worlds that produce everything in the outer world, coming from the center where spirit itself pours out into the universe. Spirit and matter, two things that are seemingly completely different. But as Einstein said in explaining his theories, E equals mc squared, energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. And we look at that and we just wonder, what the hell does that mean? And what Einstein himself said about it is that it means that both spirit and matter are created of the same substance, and that matter has spirit compressed down in it to such a degree through forces that are within it that mass, the mass of matter, times the speed of light squared is how much energy is contained. And if you released all that energy, it would shoot up to and become spirit itself. And so the inner and the outer are always connected because they are the same thing, one in a different state of being than the other is in. And those different states of being, as they interact with each other over vast period of time, unfold the nature that binds them both together, which is love, into each other, so that both become completely engaged and fluidic with love. It becomes an incorporated corporal part of our anatomy. There's no separating us from love, because in every single plane and subplane of all 7 major divisions of the cosmic physical universe, they are both there. Substance with spirit, matter with spirit, these duality of what the universe was separated into at its very beginning are all there, all the different levels. And love is still bringing them into greater and greater comprehensive understanding of how to express this out here, way out here, beyond it all, which is life. Pure, living being. If being even exists out there, we don't know till we go out here with a very highly developed nature from living in all of this. We won't know till we get out there what that state of being is before it ever enters into a cosmic physical universe. So that's an exciting part of our future, an inevitable part of our future. Not so far as you might think, because there is in you stuff from all these inner worlds all the way up to this spirit aspect in this 6th inner realm. These inner realms, by the way, being much bigger, because look, we were informed a while ago by powers and principles that know about it, that this is all inside of us. It's inside of us where all of this lives. How does it all fit in there? We don't know, because the brain, which is made out of this material atoms out here, matter, dense matter, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, stuff like that, because those are the atoms that make up the physical brain, we see it in a material construct perspective. That's only a limitation out here of matter, compressed into a very strange condition until love unfolds it into the universe. Now, spirit is operating on an entirely different set of principles up here that allow for a very different kind of life, one so foreign to our conscious nature that we're not even sure we want to live there. It's nice to think about heaven as be a place where we get to sit on a cloud and strum harps. We know that that's not exactly what living in heaven is about. That doesn't mean heaven doesn't exist because somebody looks at that and said, oh, that's a joke. That's just a human fantasy. Yeah, sure it is, because our brain can't really acquire an instant visual awareness of what it's like to live in these exotic fields up here with the beings that live there. They don't have dense and rigid forms like the physical material does. Your skin isn't the barrier that it is. In the physical world, punch a hole in your skin and blood leaks out. That's not how it works up here. These boundaries are not firm, they flow. And your consciousness of identity, your individuality, is not bothered by anything swimming through your field of awareness of self any more than the cosmic rays that are passing through us as we live out in the earth, gamma rays, quarks, and things like that, beaming from who knows where to going to who knows where, are they're passing right through us. But we don't go, ouch, oh, ow, I felt that, ow, oh. They just pass right through, like asteroids through the solar system. So tiny that they just whiz right between Mercury and Venus and on into the next field of space. So the reality out here, where we live in the physical body with our illusion, missing love, which persists all through here, that just stays with us, and we keep recreating it in new and more diabolical forms as we build better and better weapons and have more and more selfishness and greed and anxiety and anger and ill health. All of these things we are producing that are not real. Why are they not real? Because love is real. And your free will in relationship to love is real. You are honored as if you were an exotic god, which maybe you are. In the last analysis, we become that. So when you tell love, I want to experience life without you, you have to create an illusion, because love can't be gone away with. You can only create a sort of little fantasy, like you were in Hawaii thinking this is your daily life and you're going to live off of fruit falling off the trees and everybody's going to be great and the waves are going to be perfect, and you don't anticipate the monsoon that's cooking up down the road and might come by later. But we can't make that fantasy come true moment to moment for ourselves, because we miss in ourselves the creative power that overwhelms fear, anxiety, and disordered mind so much that you can live in a constant extent of paradise, because we're really too busy. That's why when you take a vacation in Hawaii, if you've been fortunate enough to go there and sit on the beach, it's like, wow, this is a magical damn place. And you're there and you're there and you're there, and you know, 5 days go by, and then you start to feel this itch. It says like, I got to get back to Omaha, where my law firm has some cases coming up, and I've got to get back there and mow my lawn, and I got to go back and do these things. So if we didn't give a damn about that law case, if we didn't give a damn about mowing the lawn, if we just let somebody else worry about all of that, we might be able to stay there, enjoy a relative paradise, because that seems very lovely. But it eats away on us. We have desires outside of what Hawaii offers. I mean, we can think we improved their lives when we brought the United States and other parts of the world came there and added their misery to Hawaii's misery. But Hawaiian life wasn't perfect either. You could get your leg chewed off by a shark. You could have these other things happen, and war occurred between them, like it does with everybody else on the planet. Because the Hawaiians, in spite of living in a very idyllic location, were not completely free from the same material illusion as everyone else. They just weren't suffering from the same diseases until the sailors from Europe and other places landed on their shores and gave them those diseases and dropped off a few rats and a few pigs and a few other things that eventually became pests to their society. So that's misery loves company, right? So what we're saying is, it's one thing to spend some time, and we can talk about it, and I can talk about it forever, how all of this grew, how this fungus of illusion has taken over the mind, the emotions, and the physical health of the human race. We have built it. But it's a very simple process right from the beginning. Imagine love out of it. That's all. Now, we didn't intend to do this to ourselves because we didn't know what we were rejecting when we rejected it. We simply said no to ending what we already were doing and adding something to ourselves that we really didn't know anything about. Because everything in the universe from outside here had to start without love, because it wasn't a revealed aspect of this life out here. We don't even know what things this life out here has within it that are unrevealed aspects. We could know that at once intelligence was an unrevealed aspect, and then it was revealed to humanity, and we grew in it, not just to humanity, but it was revealed to the universe, and the universe learned how to be intelligent. Minerals, you may not think they're very smart, but we can make alloys out of them. We can add them together. They can bond with each other. Now, that may not seem like much intelligence to you, have two atoms bonding to each other, but it's hydrogen and oxygen bound to each other. They give water to this planet. That's a highly intelligent activity governed by a magnitude of intelligence that we know nothing about yet, this stage of our simplicity. And we won't know anything about it until we give ourselves love, because it's love that holds that bond in place. It's magnetic attraction that binds the whole universe into a coherent, functioning unity. And that is another name for love. There are many names for it. So, open yourself up to the presence of reality. Ta-da! There it is. But when you do that, intentionally include in that presence, at whatever level you look at it, spirit down here, this group conscious formation of life out here in the Buddhic world where love is the dominant energy, out here in the mental world where thought forms and patterns are created, out here where emotional life is flooding around, and out here in the dense physical where all the atoms are whizzing. Give love to yourself as the invisible power that connects the highest and the lowest right through. As spirit at the center and matter out here at the edge continue their growth into and through each other at every level in every one of these things. Something there, something that lives in this one is connecting to something that lives in that one through something here, which it may not even be aware of, but it doesn't matter. The multiplicity of the universe with love is incredibly more complex. Trillions upon trillions of little wheels and greater wheels turning within themselves and engaging in the greater wheels and turning within them, and all of it rotating in a direction around as it all perfects itself to love. as the one universal thing that out here in life, way out here, is pouring from the center, which is a vast space, not a tiny point in the center, but yet it is a point in the center. It's hard to talk about physics that you can't see because your brain won't let you. If it did let you, your formless being, completely the reverse of your form being, the two of them living in your mind together would be a very confusing subject, which is why the soul nature that we own, our nature up here where soul lives, is so different from our nature out here where personality lives in this dense body, aging body, that we can't put the two in the same complexity because it's like, it doesn't fit, doesn't make sense. Well, you're going to have to learn new math, new science, new livingness, and let that be all right with you before you can cohabit with it as your soul and your personality join each other, living in the same body together. Not just one pushed out with the door shut, because that took love with it, but both of them living in the same body, learning how to love each other. So we're headed that way. We're going that way. And all of the people, the Buddhists and their advocates in the West, Alan Watts, Ram Dass, whoever it happens to be, those guys and the spiritual guys, the Christ and the group, the Gnostic people, the people who live with the inner livingness of love, those two groups, the wise group and the spiritual group, are coming together. And as they come together in the human race, joy is released because they recognize in each other the reality. Love in the mind and love in the heart, love in the soul, love in the personality. Up here, spirit, which is the spirit of love through all things, all of that starts to become something we realize is one single glorious radiance. And when the radiance is in us of spirit up here, things happen. Magnetic power is moving. And then the soul in us, which is the fluidic substance that responds to love, starts doing things. Wonderful thing. And then that physical material form out here, which is seeking a relationship to love, starts turning itself towards it, saying, I want more of that. And then this at the highest and this at the lowest start interacting. And this consciousness in us starts realizing with its free will, I want that. I want more of that. Give me more of that. I have plenty of this out here. I've lived on this earth a long time in the material form. I want some of this stuff. I want the love, the joy, and the creative freedom that love can give when it's empowering my heart. You see, that vision starts to become a real possibility. It's always been a possibility, but we were not grown up enough from the ignorance of the past to the relative capacity of the modern person to integrate mind, feeling, and heart into something that doesn't figure out love, it doesn't figure out life, it figures out that it wants to know more about it, and that there isn't any more to learn from inside these elemental lives that make up our physical existence. So we apply to that part of the universe which has all of that overflowing, and that part of the universe which is interested in interacting with the bodies of humans, the bodies of plants, the bodies of animals and minerals, opens up the barriers and floods down into us, and we start a companionship relationship with all of these lives, trillions of unseen lives. There's more living in the universe that is unseen with the outer senses of physical, ears, and sense, smell, all of that. There's more life living unrecognizable to those outer senses than is visible to the outer eyes, to the outer hearing, to the outer sense of smell, not to mention touch. And thinking, because thinking done inside the material brain is limited by matter. But when you go into abstract thought, when you stop being limited by that, then you enter into the mind that all of this part of the universe is using in here with these inner rings. They're not limited by density of matter. Their mind is penetrating throughout everything and shared by everyone and has its own natural laws of self-governing based on your individuality in those spaces and love protecting you, caring for you, honoring you, as it does out here, even though we don't realize it's doing it. When you reject love out here in the human form, fuck you. I don't care about your shit. I don't care about your love. You don't hurt love, and you don't cause it to reject you just because you rejected it. Love just gives you what you just requested. I want to exercise my option to experience the rest of my life without you in it. So love gives you that experience so that you can come to the place of knowing that it would have been nicer to have it in your life rather than be separated from it. And that there is no one, no thing, no real part of life that we really can separate from or want to separate from once we know it as it actually is and not as we think it is. So, having said all that, how do we bring this interface with love? Well, pause, tune into now, right now. Now is the place where love lives. It's the only place that exists. Don't try to remember some sweetheart you had in old. If you think about her or him or them, you're creating them in the now. Memory isn't stored in some soft spot in your brain. It's a recreation by you in the now, right now, of something that happened a long time ago. And you're using the synaptic memory of how that all fried out in your brain to give yourself a new story with it. But it's being bound by and limited by how you saw them, how you felt them, what you thought about them, yada, yada, of all that stuff in the past. If you stop that, if you drop that and enter into the now, whoever that is, whatever they are now, they're there in the now with you because there's nowhere else to go. Your body can die, but you have nowhere to go except into the now. And there you are, experiencing yourself in the body that life provides for you in that now. If your physical body dies, your etheric body, which is the underlying mechanism that keeps all these atoms bound together in something that resembles a human being, that lets go. Okay, we're done with this lifetime. That's all those atoms are being reclaimed by the earth. Your etheric body shrinks off to somewhere else, and you are left in your astral body, your emotional body, which looks a lot like your physical body because it's quite transparent substance that's been charged with your thought and feeling patterns and your living patterns. So we find ourselves there, which sounds like, oh, I'm going to be a ghost. Well, from a physical point of view, it seems that way. But spirit is no ghost. Spirit, when it moves, is lightning. And it can change everything in an instant, and often does. So when we think of our life, which is connected directly to spirit up here and always will be, because you happen to be living in an astral body, you are a being in that astral body with spirit, with consciousness, with life, with love, with all the powers that the divine being who creates a universe invests in the lives in it. You've got them. They're still yours. Physical body's gone because you've departed from that outer ring. You're still departing from this ring, and that will take years, possibly. And then we have this mental body up here that you built, which will be the last thing you give up before you enter in here somewhere to the soul body, which is a permanent, semi-permanent structure that you are building in this inner spiritual world. So don't be dismayed by all the illusion that we have built into ourselves. You're not going anywhere. There's no levers. There's no hippie levers you can pull and say, this is my last lifetime. I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back as a girl. I want to come back as a dog. None of that stuff matters because you don't have that kind of control. Now, there's some part of you up here which does. It interacts with the greater consciousness of the universe around it and with the lords of karma and things that we don't really understand in the human consciousness. Cook up whatever will be your next adventure out into the world. And it will be an adventure that engages in so much complexity of interaction with your previous lives, your future lives, the greater human lives that are all caught up in all of this, that you can't even figure it out. So you have to just let it work itself out. Because it knows all the debts you owe all the way back to the very first lifetime. It knows all of the things it wants to accomplish in its future lifetimes. And it knows who you are in its essence in here, up in here, in spirit and in soul. And out here in personality, we don't know a goddamn thing about who we are and what we are and where we're going and why we're going there. We only know what we want for lunch. Let's go to McDonald's. So that's what we know. So we act on what we know. And we drag all of this higher intelligence along with that knowing, even though it doesn't know anything about love. So we offend against the law of love when we go to McDonald's, when we eat the food, when we honk our horn at that idiot at the stoplight who didn't take off fast enough. All the things we do interact with life and participate in the illusion of life without love. And we measure everything out there. All those people that don't love, all those people that do love. And then they love until they get mad and then they stop loving. So in a way, we're already halfway there because we have come to the place where we judge the actions of ourselves and other human beings, called conscience, in how much love we are able to hold on to at any given moment. So when you enter into the now, the time of now, you realize that's the only place time exists, right now. But it exists there in a thing called duration, which is why a statue in the park lasts longer than just 10 minutes and gets a chance for all those pigeons to decorate it. That's duration. And the things that are passing from the inner choice to love something, to the outer world of expressing it and then watching it fade into memory, that's duration, like dropping a pebble in a pond. The pebble sinks to the bottom, but the ripples that go out to the edge of the pond take a long time to dissipate relative to the pebble dropping to the bottom. So it's not that past, present, and future don't exist, because the pebble dropped from a mountaintop is on its way to the pond. That's the future when it's going to hit the pond. It's in the pebble's future, but it's already been dropped and it's passing through air. Then when it hits the pond, that's the presence, big splash. And then the future, or the impact of those ripples going out. So we see this past, present, and future going on, but it's all one event. When you come to the consciousness of yourself dropping the pebble from way up here, spirit, out to here, you realize that duration is the time it will not only go through all of that to get there, but all the impact of it, all the ripples all the way back to here, that will all be part of it. And other things that we don't even know how to examine or understand, because it's not happening on just the surface of the pond. It's happening down in the pond. It's happening in all this group of fish that suddenly got scared and ran in that direction into the mouth of a shark. All of the things that are set in motion by dropping that pebble way up here are involved in that one arc. And it's way too many for our human thinking to concern itself with, because it has no direct proposition for us to use in terms of, will it help me survive today or tomorrow, or feed me, or give me something I want? Will it give me some sensation I'm looking for? And if it doesn't, then why are we bothering with it, even though it's working in the universe and they're all experiencing this? So what? I can't do anything about it. I'm busy using what I've got and what I can reach. My arms are only so long. So we let all that go until our consciousness is strong enough, large enough, experienced enough to take it into responsible consideration. I can't worry about what I do impacting something on the Buddhic plane up here, because I don't know how the time cycle works from where I'm out here and the personality doing something, how long does it take for that to impact here? Maybe it impacted it yesterday and I don't even know that. So the time factor is part of it. The substance factor is part of it. And the karma of all of that, or the impact of it on other organisms, and its relationship to the purpose of life itself as a great, vast being of love, I don't know how to include that. Now, perhaps a Christ consciousness can include all of that, but not by using a brain to think about it, but by simply entering out into this amazing synthesis that love offers as higher mind, and expressing to itself the heart connected experience to all of that, and then taking into account the time sense between out here and in there. So you see, it's a lot of growing up before we can actually do all of that. Now, when we grow up, we will be able to do all of that. We'll be able to take a lot of things into consideration, like a guy landing a 727 on a short runway. He has to take a lot of things into consideration to be able to land that plane safely, given the weather, the wind, the speed, the fuel, the weight, the flatness of the surface, obstacles in the way. So highly developed beings in a very specialized nature can do a lot of things simultaneously, because they're connected to the knowingness of the moment they're in. It's just a human thing, and all of that connects to the brain. When you are limited, freed from the limitation of the brain and out into the using the brain of the mind of the soul, which is using a huge mind, and the qualities of love that join you and give you transformation and transmutation and synthesis and integration and unity and all those things, you might be a remarkable being, such as a Buddha or a Christ or a spiritual master. There are grown-ups in the house, fortunately for us, and they are acting as grown-ups, and they're not explaining themselves to the idiots in the classroom. They're just figuring out the lessons of the day and giving them. And we're out here on the frontier, being frontier children, shooting spitballs at the other students, and no one is teaching love. Grandma's teaching love. So if you want to know about love, get into a posture in relationship to it whereby it impacts you, impacts your eyes, your ears, your smell, your taste, your touch, all your inner senses, which for every outer sense, there is an inner sense. And by the way, the inner senses are built before the outer sense even comes into form, because the outer sense is downstream. You had to start out up here with spirit. You built the gahunas here as you moved outward towards the rim. Then the gahunas created the tanmatras somewhere in here. These are the senses before they become senses. And out here on the surface, the senses create the being. It's the sense of sight that creates the eyeball. So the sense of hearing that creates the ear and its complexity and its unique anvil and stirrup and all of the amazing little fallopian tube things that are going on in there. Or the lungs with their strange little sacs that interact and pull nitrogen or carbon out of the lungs and put it out in the breath and take oxygen in and give it to the body, travel it around the body. And the intelligence that knows how to do all of that is in the animal nature. So that's life at work. That's life doing its job without self-reference, without having to think about it, without concerning itself. That's love, loving. Loving. It's a very different thing than thinking, than feeling, than touching. So put yourself in a posture in relation to this vast, invisible reality that is love, flooding the universe. And do that by imagining yourself doing it. The imagination is the powerhouse of the soul. It's the image-making power of your soul. That's what imagination is, and it can guide you to, eventually, a complete understanding of the universe by letting you imagine yourself sharing it. So you don't have to be right. You have to know what you're committed to and what your intention is and what your will is directed toward. My will is directed toward making love manifest as a power in my life. My imagination is visualizing and imagining the flood of that graceful, great energy through me, to me, from around me, everywhere. I can imagine that. I can imagine it as a magnetic field. I can imagine it as a flood of a beautiful light. I can imagine it as an angelic, graceful creature. I can imagine it as Christ consciousness meeting me, merging with me, giving me itself, giving me its essence, so that I can join it in a conscious revelation of our dual purpose together between matter and spirit in unfolding the divine life. I can imagine that. And the strength of your imagination is the creation of the golden pathway to it. You can also imagine yourself stepping downward step by step by step into the darkest, weirdest, wickedest hell. That's what imagination can do. It has to be equally free to move in all directions to get you out of the hell you're already in. You see, some people are living in a very dark and twisted version of existence. Not necessarily of their own personality making in this particular life. They may wonder, how did I end up playing piano in a whorehouse? I don't know. But I'm a good piano player, and the girls are pretty, and the meals are good, and people come in here and throw money around. So it's not all bad, but it's not the life I want to live. And I see that it creates difficulties for the people around me, for the girls, sometimes for the guys, sometimes for the bartender. And occasionally it crashes over into the piano player's world. And you can fall in love with one of these participants, and then suddenly their problems become your problems, and you find yourself wishing you had a ticket out of this town. But you can go from Omaha, Nebraska, to Los Angeles, California, and you will find yourself in a whorehouse playing piano, because they're everywhere. And until you elevate yourself through love into a world in which the disease, the degradation, the self-imagery, and the smells, tastes, and activity is not present in that way, you're still going to relocate yourself in just another version of it. Maybe a prettier version, maybe a more despotic version, maybe more disease, maybe better weather. You don't know. But it's not upward out of the mess and into a more loving environment. That has to come out of us, imagining it and holding on to that wish, holding on to that prayer, holding on to that commitment, and then taking action that comes to us from it, from the where we're going, that we feel will bring it one step closer. If you do that, that's all you have to do. Imagine it, visualize it, invite it, invoke it, call it to you. All of that is the first step of the action of that. I want that. I want this where I am to be filled with love and to transform the circumstances so that love is reflected in every element of it. And then we'll take it from there. If I don't want to play piano anymore, then I'll take up another instrument, take up gardening. But if I do, I want to garden in love's garden. And if I'm playing piano, I want it to be where love is around me. If it's in a whorehouse, then it's going to be a damned beautiful one. If it's in a philharmonic orchestra, then we're going to be doing some really beautiful music. But love is going to bring this whole adventure up because it doesn't believe in anything other than love. We do. That's how we got to be playing piano here. We believe in a condition other than love. All those girls that are doing their internet versions of me and making a bunch of money, their lives are changing due to the condition of sexuality and desire as we perpetuate ourselves in the internet with it. And it doesn't always end where we wanted it to. We did get some money doing it, maybe, if we happen to have a decent game going on, picking up marbles with our toes or something like Irma la Douce with Shirley MacLaine. But maybe it's not what we hoped it would be, because every young girl wants love. Every young girl wants a Prince Charming or a Princess Charming or whatever floats your boat. But it's pure in its intention. They imagine that as something wonderful in their life, somebody coming in and bringing love to meet their love, and the joy of what they share together, creating a lovely creation. That's not wrong, and that's not bad. And that would happen if it were persisted in. But the group experience we all share in the illusion starts coming in with it. And it penetrates and infiltrates into our imagination and our appetite for sensation. That's part of the human journey. So we start degrading our dream because our dream has to sustain itself in the world. How are you going to make money? What are you going to do for a job, son? So how love can pay your bills is understood by love, but not by us. We have to go out there and play piano, and we have to have somebody pay us for the piano because they want it in the background. And then, by the way, now that we got AI, we don't need your piano, son. So you can either take up a job on stage at Chippendales in your new outfit. Here's your new outfit, or go do something else. But we've got AI playing music now, so we don't need you doing it. So life is full of these kinds of complications, none of which changes your power to call love into your service, because that's what love's purpose is to serve life. And you are equal in life to any other life that ever lived. You're not equal in size. You're not equal in maturity. You're not equal in any of those elements that differentiate lives. But you are equal in being loved, because that's all love loves. It doesn't know anything else except what is this being that's approaching me, and how do I love it to its own perfection so it can grow into something greater than it already is. That's all love's doing in a certain way, but it's doing it so amazingly, with spirit up here, with soul here, and with dynamic action out here. All the way through, love knows what the hell it's doing. So invite it in, put yourself in the posture of receiving it, and then act on that, and start building in your conscious mind a world in which love is actively present. Will is here, intelligence is here. Put love here with you. Smell it, taste it, see it, make it live with you as an essence of life, an aspect of this life out here that created the entire cosmic physical universe and all of its levels and dimensions and inner worlds and every being in it. It's all one single thing, and it's evolving and growing. And what's it doing? It's perfecting love to itself and to everything that lives in itself. And if you looked at all of this circle with all this cosmic circles within it, and then think of our solar system as a miniature of that, right here with the sun blazing in the middle, a physical sun, a spiritual sun, and a central spiritual sun where spirit is, all three in a triangle, creating the entire sphere of the solar system and animating all the lives in it, planetary lives, vast lives that transmit throughout the whole solar system, like Lord Ani, who is all the fires of the solar system are the body of Lord Ani, Agni. Now, you may not think that being exists, but the fires exist. Whether you light a candle and you have a little salamander on a candle and you blow it out, where do you think it goes? Do you think you killed it? You think it no longer exists? It went back to the place it lives before it comes out to burn on the candle out here in the material world, living in the burning gases of the candle when you lit a match to it. That's tallow or fat or some kind of beeswax or something. And when it heats up a certain amount, it gives off gas, and that gas can burn. And that gives an opportunity for a living, tiny piece of Lord Ane to live in the physical universe for a certain period of time, as long as those gases are available to it. Now, it's not the brightest thing in the universe, but it lives on the candle, giving heat and light and a connection through itself to the source of all the fires of the universe, including the fire of spirit. We just don't know much about all that, do we? And an explosion is just a really fast fire. It's chemistry that burns that gas so quickly that it's just right now happening. And it releases with such pressure that it blows things to pieces and scatters the pieces far and wide and tears up a lot of bodies in between. So this is all going on in our universe, in our little planet, in our little piece of the solar system. But all of it is caught up in and embraced by the livingness of life itself, governed by love. So you can blow a person to pieces on the battlefield, but life catches them. Love catches them. Now they got no body, it's pieces all over the battlefield, so that's disregarded. It's gone, it's lost. It's okay. Those pieces will fall back into the earth, break down to by bacteria and other things to nothing, to be built into some other body somewhere down the line. You've probably got pieces of George Washington in you somewhere, or Marie Antoinette, or anybody that ever lived. So, but you were caught up out of that explosion, dusted off, and placed into the next dimension that you logically fit in by your own inner self, your own inner choices, your own inner attitude. You might have been scared and crazy when you got blown up, but that's temporary. I did a meditation with some other friends when I was in Hawaii one time, out in the waters, sticking out into the waters. We weren't in a boat, but we were out on the land that sticks out in the waters of Pearl Harbor, where those ships were sunk. And we went there to do this meditation on raising. It was a raising meditation for any of the consciousnesses of the lives that may have been trapped in the death experience that they experienced when the ships were sunk, when the Japanese bombed the place and blew up the ships. And it didn't include just American sailors, but that's what the most of them were. But it also included a few Japanese pilots and merchant people and other people before and after the war. So, when you're releasing lives on a battlefield or in a place like that, you go into the inner world where that is, and you call them up, you wake them up, wherever they are, in the astral plane, in the mental plane, somewhere up in there where they still haven't fully realized how to let go of what happened to them. Because it's a very extreme situation when you die in those situations, and violent death, trying to save your friends, save yourself, save your ship, do the thing. It's hard. It's very hard on people that do it. And I was surprised, and so were my friends. We were amazed at how great the interaction was. And at how many lives, because there were thousands of lives before, during, and after. And they're all over the planet. This is just one little place. And so out of all those lives, most of whom have passed on, like all the other lives who have died in Hawaii. But there are those who are traumatically still embodied, not embodied, their bodies are gone, but their subtler bodies are still held in the magnetic location. And they need to move on. And so they started waking up in the meditation and started rising up, because the one thing that we have, if you're going to work in meditation or you're going to work in spirituality in the world, in your physical form, you remember that you have a physical form. You have an etheric body. You are located on the physical earth. And that's where the God of your nature has focused you, so that you can have impact on that earth through yourself, through your chakra centers, through your field of life, through your soul impact, through your spirit of living. So you have more power than you think. We may not know anything we're doing. I don't know how to personally release a soul except to invite it through love, except to invite love in, invite greater consciousnesses, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, other consciousnesses in, and say, help me out here. I want to help these guys. And during that experience, which was a profound experience for me, there was one moment in it that will always be remembered by me. And I mean, I was watching these souls rising up, kind of like rising up, not as if they were rising out of the water, but as if they were rising out of the density into the astral, and then towards the higher light of the mental, and then towards the resplendent light of love beyond that. And as I watched them rising up towards that, there was one person, a sailor or something like that, who opened up a sort of hole into the lower sphere, because I'm sitting on the physical level, and stuck his head back into the denser space. And I'll never forget it, because the face was just radiant with joy. And he shouted into the space, "Hey, guys, come on, we're going home." And that just reverberated through the whole thing and gave me a realization how all of our imaginary limits and boundaries of time and space and circumstance and personal capacities are nothing like what is, like what actually is. And that when the circumstances are right, amazing things happen. Now, I've worked in cemeteries and battlefields and places all over the world and doing this kind of thing because I just like it. It's a hobby of mine. If I'm traveling or doing something, I like to go to churches, doesn't matter what the denomination is, and meditate there and release things there, because especially old cathedrals, old churches, old spiritual sites of one kind or another, indigenous sites, it doesn't matter. Things pile up there, skeletons pile up there, things just they get magnetic, and they hold things to them that were invested in them that don't know how to let go easily, stuff like that. So it's fun to go and stir it up and bring in the power of love and some of the masters of love that are willing and available, and let them help, knowing that the most good I have is because I am a physical being in that location. I'm bringing the touchstone that makes this choreography dance. So when we think about this stuff, don't limit yourself by what you don't know. If you're bringing love into your human anatomy to power through you with the joy of the heart and the embrace of everyone around you, then let it happen. Let yourself experience it beyond your prejudices, beyond your habits, beyond your thinking, your emotional conditioning. And it will start breaking down and clearing away that crap, because it is not permanent. You are permanent. And letting love into your consciousness makes that permanent too. And then it starts cleaning up the house, because not all the bric-a-brac in your house is moving with you when you go to a new location. You have to let it go, and you have to let the emotion bound into it, because, oh, that was a little teddy bear that was given to me by my grandpa, who's been dead for 50 years and doing something completely different. So I'm hanging on to it and dragged it with me, and it's sitting up there on the shelf in my house. And you can keep moving it from house to house on the earth to remind you that there is such a thing as love. But when you die, it's not going with you. It's going to stay there and be tossed in the trash or sent down to Goodwill or passed around for some other child to enjoy. That's life. It will break down in a landfill somewhere eventually, and we'll have to build a new one. somewhere down the line. One more beautiful, one more perfect, one more interesting. So find your posture, which is a mental posture, an emotional posture, and a physical posture in relationship to the invisible world of love. Imagine it as it is coming to you. Imagine you taking action in your life to prove it, to demonstrate it, to release it. That action is necessary. That imagining is necessary. That commitment to it from wherever you stand is necessary. Those are the three fundamental elements of the posture. Commitment, imagination, action. Now, there are other things, and they come up in the conversation of the workshop when we have it. And we have this is a workshop. I'm explaining to you what to do right now. I told you, enter into the now. That's a fourth thing you need to do. The now. If you don't know about the now, learn more about it. Go listen to Eckhart Tolle. Go try to understand what he's trying to tell you, because he lives there. He has a personality. It still has things it likes, chicken soup or whatever he does. But in that personality, the presence of now, the presence of a world in which love lives, is taking over. He came to that realization. He lifted the burden of living without that reality in his life. And when it entered his life, he hung on to it with both hands, and he's still hanging on to it, talking to us about it so that we can find a way in. So go listen to some Eckhart Tolle. If he bores you, then he bores you. Find someone better. Find someone more exciting. Find someone who sees the world in which love is a dynamic, interpenetrating, living property. I would say read the Bible, but the trouble with that is it's so overlaid with religions that want to pull you into beliefs that have been attached to the Bible that are really nothing to do with love or the Christian, esoteric Christian or Gnostic Christian life. Jesus didn't have a Bible. He had love itself living in him, with him, with his personality, with his mind, with his emotions, with his physical body. And he was enough of a man that he could do that. He could handle that much truth, that much reality, that much livingness in him, and not abandon it no matter what they did to him. And believe me, they did to him. if you look at the Shroud of Turin, you realize there's something like, I don't know how many hundreds of wounds on that man's body, because the blood's all over the thing. And it shows to the people who look at it and interpret it just how abused this guy got. When they flogged you, they did it with a will. Those flogs were long strips of leather with metal or stones in the end of it to tear and gouge out chunks of flesh everywhere on his body, his face, his back, his legs, his hands. Everything on his body had been thoroughly worked over, because they crucified you naked, pretty much. They didn't dress you up for the occasion. They wanted you to hang there in all your glory, bleeding everywhere. So all of this is part of the truth of things. It's an amazing truth, because you're dealing with supernatural capacities that live up here in these spiritual worlds, spirit, and up here, this little purple kind of pink thing here, this represents the Atmic realm, which is above the Buddhic, and it's up in here in one of these subplanes, because each of these major 7 planes is divided by 7 subplanes, each of which is a pretty wide aspect of reality. It's a wide frequency band, and there's a lot of life in each of those. But the nirvana of the Buddha, who wanted to balance his karma out here on the material so he could release himself from it and then travel up to there and stop. That was where he was going. One of the subplanes of the Atmic plane. Now, that's a very high state of frequency in the universe, where will is extraordinarily active as a dynamic property, where love is a group experience only. The beings that live there think of each other and themselves as group consciousness, not as a separated individual consciousness in a group. It's us as one group, and each individual consciousness is like a finger or something in that group. It's not, we can't imagine it until we know how to do it, and neither can the Nirvanis until they figure out how to live there. And so those guys are extraordinary beings that learned how to do that through the cooperation of the Buddha and the Yoga Sutras and Mahabharata and those kind of things. Beyond that, up here is where your original monadic aspect of self is held in creative focus. That's a monad, which is an individualized fragment of life from out here appearing here. It's not a thing. It's a whirl of three things together, at least three things. Will, love, and intelligence, the trinity of the universe, whirling together. And while it whirls together with a certain creative purpose, it draws the substance of this out here, this life, down into itself and through itself out into the universe, out into a soul that lives down here between the buddhic and the mental, and then from there out into a physical form with a personality down here, going through an enormously long cycle of bringing those three things, the personality of a human, which includes your mental body, emotional body, physical body, and the integrated entity of a personality with all three as one. Bringing that into union with the soul after it unfolds the petals of the soul, knowledge, three knowledge petals, three will petals, three love petals, unfold into perfection in that human soul, which is a little miniature version of the solar system's soul, and then bring that into harmony with the monad up here as a perfect circulation from the highest to the lowest of what? The divine energies of life itself, from pouring from out there into us, into the soul, into the form, and circulating an ever increasing and greater dynamic until finally love itself as the spirit of the nature radiates out and burns up the whole. And then we are released from that back to this, or back to another cycle that will bring us back in again as another greater version than the human version, or whatever happens in our future. There's a lot of possibilities in the human path to greatness. So, but here we are out here, stuck without love, blind to love, and now we have to open our freaking eyes and see it and imagine it and bring it in and then act as if it were true. Now, you don't want to do that. Nobody wants the exercise of doing that because it's work. It takes work. Michelangelo probably didn't like all the effort it took to learn how to chisel the Piatra, but he did. He took the time. He had to learn to know the marble, to see the picture in the marble, to develop the tools, to keep the tools sharp, to teach his hands and arms and body to keep doing the right stroke until the whole thing appears. And that was just the marble that he created images in. Lying on his back going blind, painting the top of the Sistine Chapel is a whole nother work of years of suffering and effort. I mean, I've done jobs, construction jobs, holding drywall up while somebody nails it up, and painting with a thing over your head on the ceiling for hour after hour after hour. It's hard to imagine doing the Sistine Chapel. It's hard to imagine because who's helping you that knows anything about it except you? You can tell somebody, go get me some cadmium red, and they hustle off to the place where you've already gotten cadmium red, powdered it down to pigment, and he can bring you back a little pot of it. But you can't ask him to go get you cadmium red out of the earth because he's not going to know how. You know how, because you know that's what makes that color work. So being Michelangelo and doing the Sistine Chapel is a lot of practice. It takes a lot of sacrifice, and I don't know what life in which he did it. Maybe he was Asian or Oriental and had the patience of Job. I don't know. All I know is when he showed up with his paint box and said, I got some ideas for the ceiling. And somebody said, give us some sketches. show us your past work. And then, yeah, because the Medici's or whoever it was that was paying for the Sistine Chapel, they had a say in what you paint on the surface of it. So he did. They gave him the job, and then he gave up the next, 10 or 15 years of his life to preparing it, getting it ready, painting it probably white first, and then started drawing the picture that he wants on there. And look, they didn't have snap together scaffold or us to call up like we do now. He had to build a scaffolding that would get all the way up there and climb it every damn time he had to go down and pee. I bet he took a jar with him. Bet he had his own pissoir up there at the top, because it's just a terrible job. And he had whatever workers he could summon that could do things that he didn't want to do, but they wouldn't be too dangerous to do, like paint that whole area black. Here's your brush, paint it all out. And then I'm going to come back over that and paint it something else onto it. So whatever happened, he did it. And he did it every day after day after day after day, and got paid fuck all. We wonder what he was paying him, what he was worth. How could you? He would have been worth at least $1,000 a day, but they probably had enough to get a couple of beers down at the tavern, some food, and then gets a couple hours sleep and get back up on the damn scaffolding again. Day after day after day. And then when it was done, what are you going to get? You're going to get a trophy. So that's life. Life is hard work. If you want to do something great, you're going to work hard at it. No question about it. But if it's connected to love, if inside you is this burning fire that is immortal existence in cooperation with the energy out here in the universe that created the entire universe and will continue to create universes ad infinitum, and you're a part of it, and you're growing through your own labors. Michelangelo left this life with what he built in himself by living it fully. I mean, he did get a lot out of it. And so did Da Vinci. And they kind of weren't first timers, as we can tell. Da Vinci was just inventing all these machines, from siege engines to airplanes, while he was writing backward and forward with left and right hand at the same time, and doing the Last Supper painted on really bad surface because nobody would give him something that would endure, or he didn't ask for it or something. I mean, it's just an amazing and remarkable story that's led us to here. So reach out in there, drag this wonderful, living, fantastic energy down into your heart, and let the illumination of it radiate from your head, and act as if you wanted that to become your real space. And it will drive out, neutralize, disintegrate all the illusion and the glamour and the Maya in yourself as you live it, in a way that allows you to, through having the illusionary self and the real self growing, this real self is going to grow here, and this illusionary self is going to change. The illusionary projections are going to start getting weaker. The material illusion, because these lives out here aren't responding to love, the banana tree is going to look the same, except you're going to begin to see the soul of those things out there. And this part here that has love in it is going to interact with the soul of that banana tree and with that banana that you're eating. And you're going to start coming to life with this, with the world of material life around you, and you're going to start feeding the soul life of those things with the soul life of the universe of love, and everything's going to start growing in a way that makes the banana plantation really hum. So love has impact on everything by being in our consciousness, in our vicinity, in our awareness and heart. So you don't know how much that's going to impact you because you don't know what transformation, transmutation, transfiguration of your character, translation of your mind and nature. You don't know what all of that's going to do to you until you build it in with love. Love is going to do all of those things because it does that automatically to beings that let it live in it. And by reasoning love out of our experience, we're not going forward on an even upward way like that. We're going forward like this, with our belly dragging the ground like serpents, to the cliff over there where the lemmings are coming off. So let's start dragging love down into our experience, and that will start lifting the human race up like this, and then we'll tussle with whether we want to give up playing piano in a whorehouse for maybe playing piano in some other location, or give up piano itself and take up knitting. Doesn't matter. Love does not care, has no desire for you to do any specific thing except grow in consciousness of love. And if you do that, then you and love are going to unfold the purpose that guides the being that created this entire universe. As big as that purpose is, it has a specific thing to do in every human being. It's all one thing, and as big as it is, and believe me, it's big, it's still not too big for the creator of it. You know, there's people that create big art, and they're as concerned about the smallest detail of that big art. You know, Lucas and Spielberg, they did Star Wars. And when you sat in that movie theater for a couple hours and watched this incredible story go by that they cooked up in such a convincible way, I mean, the damn thing was flawless, because Lucas could see light and how light interpenetrated our consciousness and gave us believable images. So that movie is 90 minutes or 120 minutes or however long it is of moving art. It's one of the highest creations the human race has ever produced. Not that some of the other movies aren't equally high in some form or another. They are. There are some great movies with great art. But Star Wars, I don't know. I was young, so when I went to see it, I thought, oh, this is good, a science fiction movie. I like science. Ba-bam. Holy crap. It was as if there were no boundaries, because Lucas knew how to take away the walls. You weren't sitting in a theater watching something like this with walls around you. He took the walls away and drew you into a story that had no boundaries. Now that takes a talent that is, in my point of view, equal to the talent of Michelangelo or Da Vinci in showing you Renaissance art. Before we had Renaissance art, it looked like children painted little flat figures on wood, which they did, with paints that were sort of drab. And then come along these guys who got together in the 1600s and showed you the depth of the entire palace and all of the people that were in the palace, and down to the dog that's there begging for a bone at the table where everybody's eating. And you think to yourself, Jesus, they just opened up the walls in these paintings that were not opened up. And that's perspective and dimension. That came with the Renaissance art, and it changed the consciousness of man. It changed how we see things. We then begin to see wholes and greater pictures and greater inclusion. And then, so when you come along to Star Wars and open up the depth of this movie, you realize that's impacting these children. Their imagination is growing like that. So, but that doesn't mean it's growing love into the world unless the story contains it. And of course, the Force in Star Wars does. It's good. It's good fighting evil. And this Dark Lord has as much reality as Yoda. But you see, in the real universe, the Dark Lord has no reality. He's an illusion because he is energy that's come together without love, absent love. And that causes a different kind of, I don't know how my picture got suddenly sideways, but hopefully it's not doing it to the screen, but it might be. Don't know what to do about that. So I'll leave it to the film. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to bring love into the space for a little while and give you a sense of time, a few minutes with it to figure out that you want it or don't want it. Just keep at it and let me know. And I'm going to figure out how to keep this from going sideways. I don't know if it's sideways on your screen. It sure is on mine. And it may be recording that way, in which case it's all right. But I'll see you later. Thank you very much. Love on.